Incredible inventions. Liftoff. Up, up, and away with the Wright brothers. After a high school accident, Wilbur spends years at home studying. His brother Orville works as a printer's apprentice. In 1892, the Wrights open a bicycle repair shop in Ohio, but their interests lie elsewhere. The flapping wing glider would never actually fly. Then let's design our own, Orville. In 1902, Wilbur tries out a glider at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. It flies! All we need now is an engine. The Wrights' first powered airplane starts to take shape. This should give you 12 horsepower. What do you think, Orville? I think it might just work. Further tests aren't a success. A twin vane at the front perhaps? Don't worry about me. I'm just the pilot. Wilbur pilots Flyer's first test flight on December 17, 1903. 3 days later, Orville makes history, flying just over 120 feet in 12 seconds. Yee-haw! It's flying! It's flying! New improved models and big business deals follow. That's 6 Wright machines at $1,500 each. It's a deal. England, 1909. Fame and fortune are finally theirs. Congratulations, Wilbur. Thank you, Mr. President. The White House, 1909. That same year, Wilbur astounds millions in New York. Hello, America! Unfortunately, 3 years later, Wilbur died of typhoid fever. Orville became a respected aviator. He died in 1948. Forward thinking. Inventions that got us moving. It didn't take long for the human race to realize that walking can be both tiring and boring. But it took ages to come up with alternatives. Pedal power. Inventive genius Leonardo da Vinci first came up with the idea of pedal power back in 1490. He drew a very accurate sketch of a bike among his many other futuristic vehicles, but the man who usually gets the credit for the invention is German Baron Karl von Drais. His 1817 bicycle had no pedals and was pushed along by the feet, but it had handlebars and therefore stayed upright. It even went more or less where the rider wanted to go. The first pedal-powered bicycle was built by Scottish blacksmith Kirkpatrick Macmillan in 1839. The next innovation, pneumatic air-filled tires, was made by Scottish vet John Dollop. It looked very much like today's models, but of course mountain bikes with pre-selectable gears and alloy steel racing frames came along later. Pedal power hits the road in 1839. British cyclist Chris Boardman gets the gold in 1992. Car. In 1885, German Carl Benz attached an engine to a tricycle, and presto, the first gasoline-driven car was born. As its top speed was about 5 miles per hour, it's surprising he didn't take up jogging instead. 2 years later, his friend Gottlieb Daimler was the driving force behind a more powerful four-wheel version. But perhaps the most famous car pioneer was American Henry Ford. He formed his Ford Motor Company in 1903 and started mass-producing his Model T. Between 1908 and 1925, a staggering 15 million cars zoomed off the production line. Carl Benz put the wheels in motion in gasoline-powered car design. Left. Look, it's only 3 wheels. Now car design is miles more sophisticated. Crafty ideas. Christopher Cockerell, a British boat builder, built a scale model of a working hovercraft in 1955 using 2 empty cans and a vacuum cleaner. The British government was so impressed that it put his idea on a secret list and promptly forgot about it. Luckily, it was rescued from a filing cabinet by an enlightened civil servant, and the first full-scale version, SRN-1, was scuttling across the seas in June 1959. What is it? Cockerell's hovercraft, of course. The version below may be more familiar. Train of thought. Horse-drawn trains had existed since the 1300s, but it was British engineer Richard Trevithick who invented the first steam train in 1804. It was used to pull iron and only went off the rails when the track started to break up under its weight. The world's first public railroad opened in England in 1825 and was the brainchild of George Stephenson. He went on to build the rocket, which pulled a 20-ton train at 25 miles per hour, twice the speed of its rivals, but hardly rocket-powered. Nowadays, trains can race down the track at 6 times that speed. Trevithick's terrific steam locomotive triggered mega machines like the Japanese bullet. Hot seat. In 1869, a French firm of bicycle makers fitted a steam engine to one of their bikes. Unfortunately, the boiler was under the seat, so the invention didn't really take off, but the writer did. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Space-safe technology. In 1865, sci-fi author Jules Verne predicted that a human would land on the moon, but it took over 100 years for the dream to become reality. As well as intergalactic transportation to get to the moon and back, inventors had to come up with crucial space-safe equipment before countdown could begin. The trouble was that nobody knew how astronauts would cope with the hazards in space, or even what the hazards were likely to be. Scientists knew that one of the biggest hurdles to overcome was weightlessness. How on earth would astronauts be able to work, eat, and sleep in space? And what about washing and other bodily needs? Through trial and a certain amount of error, space scientists finally came up with the answers. Suitable suits. The first spacesuits were developed from the high-altitude pressure suits worn by military pilots. The spacesuits were silver to make the astronauts look like the popular pictures of spacemen, not for any scientific reason. After various combinations of layered suits have been tested in space, designers hit on a cool idea. An undersuit, like a pair of long johns, was equipped with small pipes. Then cold water was pumped around the body to keep the astronaut from sweating and steaming up the suit. For moonwalking on the Apollo missions, astronauts wore these liquid cooling undergarments under a 17-layer spacesuit made of plastic film, coated nylon, and fireproof fiberglass. The whole ensemble weighing a whopping 190 pounds on Earth, but felt about 160 pounds lighter on the moon. As space technology has moved on, spacesuits have also become more advanced. On shuttle missions, astronauts used jet-propelled backpacks to thrust them to new horizons in outer space. Without a spacesuit, gas would bubble out of the blood as if it were boiling. Yikes. Early astronauts looked like sci-fi comic heroes. Now, with the aid of jet-propelled backpacks, the sky's the limit. Food for thought. Meals in space used to be a bit of an ordeal. Freeze-dried food was taken up to space in containers like toothpaste tubes. Then astronauts added water and sucked out the contents, everything from chicken soup to barbecued turkey. A much wider variety of hot food can be instantly prepared these days thanks to special space kitchens. Astronauts can even use plates and forks as long as everything is firmly clamped in position. Yummy, how appetizing, freeze-dried vegetables. The question everyone asks. During early space missions, astronauts used to catch body waste with adhesive tape. Now, it's a much less sticky situation. Space toilets are fitted with air currents that pull waste products away from the body into containers. The waste is then stored and returned to Earth. Well, you did ask. Space toilet. In 1965, astronaut Virgil Grissom sneaked a corned beef sandwich into space with him. NASA officials weren't pleased. Sleep tight. Zero gravity means sleeping is more than a little tricky. You can't really lay your head down when you don't know which way is up, and your blanket is likely to drift off before you do. Imagine trying to get to sleep when you're strapped into your bed with a head restraint, mask, and earplugs. Well, Power fuel. A clever device called a fuel cell produces power for lights, instruments, and computers, as well as water for drinking and washing. Handy when you're miles away from the nearest faucet.